Confidence interval for estimating a population proportion. The objective. The objective is construct a confidence interval used to estimate a population proportion P. So here's the notation. P represents population proportion. P hat represents the sample proportion. N represents the number of sample values. Capital E represents the margin of error. Z alpha divided by 2 is the critical value, which is the z-score separating an area of alpha divided by 2 in the right tail of the standard normal distribution, which makes this z-score positive. And so here are the requirements. Number 1, that the sample is a simple random sample. Number 2, the conditions for the binomial distribution are satisfied. There is a fixed number of trials. The trials are independent, and there are 2 categories of outcomes, and the probabilities remain constant for each trial. Number 3, there are at least 5 successes and at least 5 failures. So here's the confidence interval estimate of P. So we would have the point estimate minus the margin of error, and on the right side, the point estimate plus the margin of error would then be the values that would be on the left and the right of the interval, which P would be in the middle, where the margin of error is equal to Z alpha divided by 2, the critical Z value, times the square root of the point estimate times the complement of the point estimate divided by N. Now, the confidence interval is often expressed in the following formats. We can also say the point estimate plus or minus the margin of error, or we can have left parenthesis, point estimate minus the margin of error, comma, point estimate plus the margin of error, close right parenthesis. Now, the round-off rule for confidence interval estimates of the population proportion, we would round the confidence interval limits for P to 3 significant digits. So now we have the procedure for constructing a confidence interval for P. Number 1, you need to verify that the requirements in the preceding slides are satisfied. Number 2, use technology or table A2 to find the critical value that corresponds to the desired confidence level. Number 3, you want to evaluate the margin of error, which is equal to the critical value times the square root of the point estimate times the complement of the point estimate over N. And then number 4, using the value of the calculated margin of error, E, and the value of the sample proportion, P hat, find the values of the confidence interval limits, which is P hat minus the margin of error and P hat plus the margin of error. And then substitute those values in the general format for the confidence interval. And then number 5, round the resulting confidence interval limits to 3 significant digits.